Today, I'm going to share with you how I went from being a number one agent with multiple life insurance companies to owning a multi-million-dollar life insurance agency. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to share with you one thing that I did that completely changed everything for me. And believe it or not, took me from being zero to like hero within just a few days. So let's start with a thumbs up and subscribing if you're new to the channel. One of the things that I did realize early on in my career was the fact that I did have the type of personality to recruit insurance agents into a downline scenario, an agency builder. Here's what I mean by the right personality. 1, intense, no nonsense personality. 2, I don't easily take no for an answer. 3, I fight for what I believe in and absolutely believe in the importance of having life insurance. And 4, I do what it takes to be successful. And guys, in most cases, that is exactly what most people will not do. A lot of hard work and a never surrender attitude and belief system. When I first got into life insurance sales and I started selling final expense at a top level, it was common for insurance agencies and IMOs to start new agents at like a very low commission level, while the agents were actually responsible for paying top dollar for the leads. I decided to start United Final Expense Services with a completely rare model. The thinking was to give life insurance agents higher commissions than what the usual and larger agencies were giving. And of course, it didn't take long for me to realize that the reason a lot of these agencies were starting the new agents at like 50 or 60% commission was because the agency owner takes on all the risks of his downline agents. And guys, stick around till the end of the video. I'm going to show you how to get my free presentation prop file, which has sales materials you'll absolutely want to have, whether you sell life insurance on a face-to-face basis or remotely through telesales. For the first 2 years of owning the agency, I was recruiting multiple agents each week right from the start. Meanwhile, I wasn't making a profit off the agents. For every like handful of agents that were having success and making sales each week, it seemed like I always got the one agent who not only was kind of terrible at sales, but when they did sell, they would actually get paid by the carrier, the advanced commissions that didn't belong to them. And then most of the clients would cancel and there would be like a massive chargeback. Of course, that agent would have already spent the money and instead of giving it back like they're supposed to, would end up out of business and then I would end up responsible for chasing them down. So instead of making like a few $100, off the agent, I was giving thousands of dollars back to the insurance carriers. During the third year of owning the agency was pretty much when I started actually seeing a profit. At this point, I had enough agents who were like sticking and staying that actually started to make up for the deadbeat agents. It wasn't a lot of profit, but it was enough to keep going and pushing through the ups and the downs. Meanwhile, I was still an active field agent selling final expense and a pretty high level for the first, I want to say 6 years of owning the agency. One of the things that I realized years into owning was that a life insurance agent's job was more than being a closer. I started to see commonalities between like all the better agents, which was how they perceived their clients and how they built relationships with those folks. When you're doing the job right, the work starts after you sell the client, after the sale is done. Building the relationship with each client is really how you stay in business and build relationships for future sales. Having a system of keeping in contact with and making multiple yearly contacts with each client is absolutely crucial to the long-term success of the life insurance agent. I also realized years ago that most people were not built for sales, especially life insurance sales, and for two main reasons. First, sales can be really difficult to understand and learn when you have like a background of being employed, in like a non-sales position. Therefore, most people can't overcome basic objections or even make a sales presentation that's like partially attractive. Number two, most people who do sell either don't put in the necessary effort to build the ongoing relationship with the client, or they simply don't know how to go about doing that. When I first got into life insurance sales, I had already been selling in a completely different industry for years and Really, one of my biggest issues was dealing with people who gave me objections and would make up excuses to not buy the products that I was selling. The issue itself was not really about the objections or excuses, but the fact that I didn't perceive those objections correctly. I took them to heart as if the client was rejecting me, and I took it personally without even realizing it. When I changed the way that I perceived the objection, everything in my business changed overnight. I went from closing maybe 20% of the presentations to closing over 50% of them within just a few days. I mean, I literally went from being a struggling agent to being the number one agent in the agency from 1 week to the next. And here's what I did. Instead of getting angry when the client gave an excuse or gave an objection, I realized what I was doing and started considering that this might be an opportunity in disguise. And that was the perception change. The opportunity was the fact that each objection gave me a chance to use the objection to spend more time with the client, building value in the product, which was life insurance. In every sales presentation, life insurance or not, we spend part of that presentation talking about the company and who they are and what they do and what's special or unique about them, and even how they rank or are rated within the industry. So instead of getting angry or agitated when I did get an objection, I would simply say, no problem, I get it. And then I would spend the next 10 minutes going back through the product part of the presentation, building as much value as humanly possible, which in turn would impress the client that I actually know what I'm doing. They would see me for who I really was, having lots of experience and being a master at my profession, which inadvertently helps the client to trust you while building massive rapport. I stopped listening to the nonsense and actually started fighting for each client, and it actually worked. At one point, when I was selling final expense insurance on a belly-to-belly basis, I never left the client's house until they either bought the insurance or asked me to leave. It was one way or the other, which I inadvertently end up doing on the phone too. They either bought the insurance or would hang up on me. I rarely would let them go and just end the conversation myself. Hopefully you guys got something out of this video. For a copy of the free presentation prop file that I mentioned back at the beginning of the video, just email me at doug@ufesonline.com. If you'd like more information on working with us on our preset calendar telesales appointments platform, or even if you want to sell face-to-face through us, just shoot me an email at that same address. As always, when you put the needs of your clients first, everything else will usually fall right into place. Now, get out there or get on that headset, but whatever you do, just make sure that you do something good for someone else today. Happy hunting.